You're listening to UCW Radio.
In your face.
What we got here is a failure to communicate.
Oh, have I got your attention now?
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
You know what I mean?
Money to be made in a place like this.
Money never sleeps, pal.
You're crazy. Don't run when you lose. Don't whine when it hurts.
You know what it takes to sell real estate?
It takes brass.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
All right, welcome to Money Never Sleeps. This is a show where we talk about anything and everything that impacts the flow of money from around the corner to around the world. And I want to thank you for joining us and viewing and listening to the show. As you see, you know, our show is global. And in that tradition, what we're doing, we're trying to bring on guests that can give us a great feel of what's happening in different parts of the world. Today's no different. We're bringing on a special guest. His name is Sean Burrowes. He's the co-founder and COO of Ingressive for Good. I'm going to bring him on. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, Luis, how are you? It's a pleasure to be here, man. I've been following you guys. I love the perspective. I love the information you're covering. So, again, it's an honor and it's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you for the compliments. You know, it's interesting, and in the way the world is going right now, with markets going up and down and changing governments and policies and things of that nature. Africa to me has always been an interesting continent, not country, but continent, because of the separation between countries. And it just amazes me, because I always said that if Africa ever got it together and came together, it would be the most powerful nation on the planet. Okay, so tell us about what you're doing over there. Tell us about you. So I want to know more about you, and then we'll go into your company, and then we're going to go into what's going on in Africa.
Awesome. So if we're going to get started, let me start with a little bit about me. So basically, my background typically is I'm from the U.S. My family's from Mississippi. We're from the bush, or the country, so to speak. So a lot of us don't make it out. So I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a military brat. Both of my parents did 20 plus years in the U.S. Navy. So it's really interesting that I was raised in such a system that was all about structure and all about things being done a certain way at a certain time. And then you move into an environment where things are a little bit more chaotic. Mm-hmm. But again, for me, it came, I shifted from the food and beverage industry. This is about the early to mid 2000s. I shifted into telecom. That was like my first taste of technology, first taste of, mobile cell phones and different things where we were shifting into the smartphones at the base level at that point. So it was an exciting time. And I was working with Cricket Wireless. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about Cricket Wireless if you've ever decided to grace the hood anywhere near you.
The green guy.
Oh, yeah. I had worked my way up with the company, and basically I was on the operations teams in Chicago. And basically at this time, Cricket Wireless, AT&T was coming in to purchase the company. I was a part of the transition team. And at the point where things were wrapping up, they were like, do you want to take a 30% pay cut and be a nobody in a huge company, or do you want to take this nice severance package? And I said, I'm going to take the severance package. Mm-hmm. And I took that, and within about 3 months, I'd actually given away almost everything I couldn't pack into 3 suitcases, and I was on my way to Ghana. And that was about 2014.
And what brought you to Ghana? Because I'm sure your first stop was Accra, and then you went from there.
Of course. I had a good friend from university. So I only knew one person. So I didn't know a lot about the country. I didn't have any family members or some extensive friend group or network there.
You just got up and went there. You had one friend and you needed a change. You thought that was the place to go.
Well, it was, again, my whole entire life, I was told to follow a certain strict policy, and I had followed it to the T my whole life. But I had come into certain situations, certain obstacles that let me know that if I truly wanted to reach a certain level, if I truly wanted to kind of change my stars, so to speak, I had to start drawing outside of the lines. And I don't mean that in a legal sense, just in how I approach my dreams.
Right.
If we're gonna go back a bit, in 2007, I moved from good old Mississippi to Washington, D.C. Upon getting off the airplane and going up the escalator, I saw a woman that was probably jet black with blue eyes speaking French, and she was about 6 feet tall. I had never seen anything like that in my life. Typically, if you're in Mississippi, everybody is from there, born and raised there. And again, many of them don't leave. So this cultural diversity, even within the Black perspective, was something that I just was not exposed to at any great deal. So I saw something like this. And when being in Washington, D.C., they call it Chocolate City. So, there's a lot of African Americans there, but there's also a lot of Africans, first generation, second generation people there, especially if you're looking at the Nigerian community, the Ethiopian community. And those two communities in particular were the ones that kind of welcomed me in. Actually, it was my engagement with the Ethiopian community in Washington, D.C., which kind of really pushed off my career. I was in an area on 14th and U Street for anybody who's in the DC area. And I was basically inside Little Ethiopia. And what I managed to do was kind of working with some elders in the community. I had to understand like how to approach the community from a political standard, because there were different rifts and different things within the community. And I had to understand how to engage them at the personal level. So we were doing things like traditional tea ceremonies. I started hiring Amharic speaking representatives at the sales counter, and different things. And just like within basically a 2 to 3 month period, you saw a 33% jump in sales across the whole market. Basically, we had changed the way that market saw us, and most of them were all using Metro PCS because somebody told them as soon as you get off the plane or as soon as you get off, however you got there, use it. Yeah, Metro MCS. Here's the phone. Here's the phone. We kind of shifted that narrative, and again, that is what created the thirst. That's what let me understand that when you deal with, especially communities like the Ethiopian community, where there's a sense of unity and everybody kind of is connected and staying together, that the inherent power with business is just so much there that again, I was a lot less fearful. There were a lot of stereotypes. And growing up, let me give you another quick story. This is going to sound funny. So I was in DC for about 2 weeks, and they told me an Ethiopian woman really was interested in me, and she wanted to get my number. And my response was like, "Ew,
you're getting picked up on the move. Look at that."
Off the streets. Yeah, it was an amazing time. But let me tell you what ignorance does. The only thing I knew about the Ethiopians were the Sally Struthers commercials from back in the day of, "Do you want to feed a starving African child for 30 cents a day?" So this is honest. This is real. This is how sometimes if you don't step outside of yourself or step outside of what people feed you, you'll just never know. Right. But again, I saw this commercial and I was like, no, like I don't want to see the grown-up version of this, and I'm not interested. Only to find out that this is one of the most beautiful people in the world, the most beautiful women you could possibly ever see in your life. And I knew at that point that I needed to find things out for myself. So that's where that
it opened your eyes and knocked out your blinders on life itself. Definitely. Yeah, that's important. So did you go out on a date? That's a big thing.
I embarrassed myself, so no, and her friends also didn't want to talk to me because it was just a very ignorant response. Right.
But look, the thing is in business, being well-rounded and being understanding how different cultures are helps you with what you're doing. So that incident helped you to change your perspective and say, hey, I'm missing something in my world that's going to help me take my business from here, or any business from here to here. So that opens your eyes to everything.
It opens my eyes to a lot of things. If I'm going to compare where I was to where I am now, just imagine I spent about 30 years of my life being told that this place is a savage jungle. There's no opportunity. There's no nothing there. And then, fast forward the rest of my life where I'm here, and I find out that almost every major multinational company has a base here. So it's kind of like, well, if this is good enough to be the base and the root of supply chains that lead all over the world, why is it not good enough for me and my business interests?
And then that's the big thing. A lot of people don't understand about Africa. You like, you've been there, so you see a lot of the things that happen. It's a certain way you do business. Okay. And I say this, they even said it in a movie some time ago, TIA, period, the end. This is Africa. This is how things are done. And if you don't adhere to that, you're not going to get anything done. You get shut down from area to area. That's it. I don't care if it's Sierra Leone, Liberia, Burkina Faso, Benin, Togo, wherever you are, that your reputation, it travels pretty quickly. And it's funny is that these countries are so different. You go French, English, this, that is so different. It's so diverse, and you have to be a jack of all, not a jack of all trades, but more. You have to have different weaponry in your holster as you deal with country to country in order to bring it all together. Because the one thing that I've seen when I was over there, and I spent a lot of time there, okay, is the issue with and I'm going to say it, this corruption. Okay, big corruption. And no, and in certain countries there is, and then you have other, like in Ghana. That's where you began. It's more it's more. I'm going to say it's more in the path of being, if they do it the right way, the New York City of Africa. Okay,
Yes.
and that's the goal with technology and everything else. But other countries, their exports are commodities. Whether it be cashews or cocoa and things of that nature, timber. Okay, and then you have other countries, their exports are something else. So it's fruitful. It's fruitful over there. And one other thing, and I'll let you chime in. One other thing that I've seen is that in Africa, a lot of people don't know this. What you have for a long time, and it shocked me when I was in the bush. For a long time, you have China coming here, Chinese companies coming to Africa, every country, and sucking up all the resources for nothing.
Yeah.
And they're making a lot of money doing it. So now with me bringing all that stuff to the table, chime in, give me your input. Let me know what you think about all this.
So let's just jump right in. So some of my views are just my views. Some of them feel a little bit spicy, but I'm hoping that we can keep it a bit real.
Yeah, well, we have to keep it real because look, on Money Never Sleeps, even though we're showcasing companies and industries and stuff like that. Right now, we're focused on what's going on in Africa. So your company is one thing. I believe that the conversation of Africa is a bigger conversation. So keeping it real is important for the listeners and viewers so they understand what's happening over there.
Gotcha. So awesome. So just imagine that there's a perspective that's my business, which is Ingressive for Good, Ingressive Captial, which is a $10 million venture capital fund focused on investing $200,000 to $400,000 in traditional African business sectors. There's that element of it. And then on the other side, we have my personal operations consultation, which is more so a representation of everything that I've learned since I've been here. So now from that perspective, I like to jump into the corruption part. So my issue with the African continent and how most people approach it in general is, number one, they approach it from a terms that everything is cheaper, everything is this, everything is this, and the third. And it is in theory. So what you have is a situation, number one, where people come in almost paying people below a living wage. And it happens across the board to the point of view where if you put people in a certain situation, you're going to understand that there's a certain outcome that's going to happen.
Right.
So there's that one. I find that with all of the businesses that I have, when I pay them competitively and I put certain infrastructure in place, I don't have a problem. Now, when you start going up to higher levels,
you embrace the Henry Ford idealism of you pay a decent wage to a worker, maybe pay them a little more for them to do the work so they can live well.
Exactly. Or give them something to aspire to. There's different. So again, in my personal business, maybe it'll be a little bit more flexible with different ways of setting up payment structures, business models, and different things like that. When you get up to higher levels, is there corruption? Yes, there is, to the highest levels. But what I feel is that if I'm looking at certain levels of corruption, I see the same activities in Nigeria as I see in the US, especially if we're looking at the president of a Donald Trump. The difference I tell Nigerians every single day is the difference between Nigeria and America is that Nigerians steal from Nigerians. America steals from everybody. So now when you have the opportunity where you're able to collect sources of revenue and different things from a lot of different countries through that leverage, through that influence, then again, if you're scraping things off the top, then it doesn't have such a heavy feel. Now, is there problems in the country? Yes. And one of the major problems is that the infrastructure does not exist. But you mentioned some very important names before, the Henry Fords. If you want to get into the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, and those, they were to the point where they were almost more powerful than the government, corrupt or not corrupt, depending on however you want to look at it, because they had something that the entire country depended on. If you're talking about the railroads and the different shipping systems, that whole infrastructure, basically the U.S. and everybody else depended on them. So they had the power to do what they want. In countries like Nigeria, which has the largest, basically the largest populated country in Africa, you have a city like Lagos where there's 20 million people here, one of the biggest cities in the world. You have an opportunity where if you're able to come here and you have the strength, the intelligence, and the capital to build infrastructure and different things like that, you have the opportunity to be a Rockefeller or a Carnegie or any of those different things in this country.
That's the thing. The opportunity is there, and that's what. And I'm glad you said that because I've seen it. It all has to do with your desire to get it done. But a big thing in any country in Africa that, and I, from my experience, is who you know. Is who you know and how you're connected. Because if you're not connected with the right people, you're not going to get the right introductions. And make no mistake, you have, you know, like in Ghana, the new government came in, the younger government, they're seeing the future. When you have the old government in certain countries, this is when you have upheaval and all this nonsense. That's why what's happening in Ethiopia is happening. This is why all these things transpire. And, you know, whether it be, you know, in Somalia and different countries, things happen because of the closed-mindedness of the government officials, where if you get the government in there that's working for the people, it's a win-win. It's a win-win. You know, but from my experience, they're always open to hearing ideas and hearing things. They want growth.
Well, the thing is that they're open, and everybody wants their piece of the pie, so to speak. So that's where the feeling of corruption comes in at. But I guess the way I look at it and the way I build my business models, where if corruption is from top to bottom, so to speak, it's no longer corruption. It's more like a system. And once you understand how the system works, you understand how to navigate it. And again, what I like about the corruption or the system that I encounter sometimes here is that basically, once you build it in, you just have this kind of flexibility, but it's also available to me. There are levels of corruption and different things in the U.S. where it's not in my tax bracket. And then there are some cases there where it doesn't matter what my tax bracket is. I'm just not welcome to the party. Where here, money talks, money walks. If you can get your foot in the door, you can have whatever conversation you want.
And it doesn't matter your color, creed, religion, nothing. It comes down to what you can bring to the table. And see, when you're talking about, when it comes down to that, because if you look at it, you mentioned it's a system. So now if you have things going on from the top to the bottom, everybody understands it's something that works. Same thing if you have something from the top to the bottom and you're paying taxes along the way, somebody has somebody's hand in somebody's pocket throughout.
Either way.
You're paying somebody somewhere along the line to get something done. That's what it comes down to.
Exactly. That's exactly how I look at it. I even tell people when I'm consulting for them, don't forget, you have to pay your taxes at certain levels. And again, once you understand who it is and you've built, and you touched on it already, relationships. So once you've touched in the right places, you have the right relationships, and you've proven that you have the capacity to make money, then basically the continent is your oyster. Again, if you're looking at Ingressive Captial, one of our early investments that we invested in, I think it was 2016 or 2017, Paystack. They just got acquired by Stripe for $200 million. Now, that's on the way to being another African unicorn. Now, just the publicity, just the attention, just the understanding that, they can bring in this type of money. Now, I can go talk to any minister, or emailing bank CEOs and different things today, where if I was in America, it's just not possible.
No.
We're here within 3 years. I can talk to anybody. I've been very, very close. I've been in the same room and at different events and different things with presidents, the Central Bank of Nigeria. We have some of these people on our contact list. And again, once you have that and once you understand how the system works, then there's just a lot of opportunity. Which again, now, go ahead.
No, I was going to say because people don't realize that over in whether it be Nigeria, Ghana, along the line, the government, the officials from the high up to the mid end to the low end, everybody wants to do business. They want
Mm-hmm.
to do business. They will talk to you because there's an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, and especially if they know that at some point in time you're from America, they want to talk to you because then it opens up different possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
and it all comes down to how you approach it and who you're dealing with.
Exactly,
Yeah.
especially for minorities. Again, being a minority in the U.S. and being a minority, well, I guess I'm no longer a minority here,
Right.
but until I start speaking, actually.
Right.
But it's just the assumptions are completely different
Hmm.
here than they are in the U.S. There's an assumption that I'm closer to the base of power, so to speak. I'm closer to resources, access, funding, and different things like that.
Right.
And over time, it was their belief in these certain things and their assumptions that allowed me to actually build these contacts. It's like you assume I know high level politicians in the US, so you're going to give me your high level politician contacts here in the US and in other countries. And again,
Hmm.
you're just able to kind of put things together over time.
Hmm. And that's what you've done, which is, kudos to you because you understood from the time you got there, you learned really quickly how the machine works. And a lot of
Exactly.
people don't learn it. And I mentioned earlier about, like Africa has some of the greatest resources on the planet. And this is why. This is why you have China coming in. They've been doing it for decades, coming in little by little, scraping out the resources for their country for
Mm-hmm.
pennies on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, how can companies over there do something to capitalize on that, to have it less China coming to do it and more of African companies to do it? Because it's not just China. You have British companies, European companies that are there where they have their
Mm-hmm.
oil rigs, they have their stuff on the coast, they have all this stuff going on, paying the workers pennies
Yes,
where if they go across the ocean, that those same pennies are now like 100 times that. Okay,
exactly.
and I mean, how do you offer someone a better life if you're an American or European company? You're going there, you're saying we are the greatest, but we're going to give you $1 a day. It doesn't make sense to me.
It does not, but I can't help feeling like it's almost by design. And being it's securing your supply chain, securing
Hmm.
your value chain. If you
Hmm.
know that you're getting all of certain resources, like if you look at what an iPhone takes to build, if you look at what your common laptops and different things takes to
Hmm.
build, all these precious stones, gems, metals, and different things like that, they're all sourced within the African continent. They
Yeah.
have all these back end. Back deals and whatnot that people have. And the thing that I say to people who are looking at what these multinational companies, again, I can tell you've been here, is that they're willing to do business.
Yeah.
If just you can come to Nigeria right now and pay $10,000 and have somebody do a exploration on a gold mine. And if they find gold, then technically you can own a gold mine.
Hmm.
Like it's just that simple. And it just when you look at it from the foreign perspective, when you look at all the different layers of things that have been added on to it and all the processes and steps you go through, it's on purpose, but it's to make it a little bit more difficult because
Hmm.
again, the world has changed. It's not so random now to see a video of somebody from Africa hanging out in the club. It's not so difficult to see different places, and eventually people are going to start getting the idea that if you're getting everything from there, then I can just go there too. So there
Right.
are different layers in that are separating people, and I'm
But
one of
but
the
it's but
people
it's
here.
not that easy. That's the thing. When somebody sees it, they're like, "Oh, they're doing this. I can go do it too." You just can't pop up and start doing stuff. You got to know someone in order
Yeah.
to open up those doors, and that's the reality. And I just want to
Yes.
I just
Yes.
want to
Yes. Yes.
backtrack on something when I talk about the companies paying
Hmm.
that paying those wages. It's not that these companies are coming in saying, "Okay, we just want to pay you this." They're going by what the standard is over there. Okay, they're going by those
Yes.
salary standards to a point. They're not going above it. Where if they went above it, they would go and that would be impact investing, I believe, where you're impacting
Right.
that city and you're creating an environment where it can be more. Uh, I guess, more cosmopolitan, more thriving, where you have someone that can actually, instead of having 10 people in a house, maybe they can have their own place and they can do things, and you give them a better quality of life. You create a better worker, a better citizen of the country. And I think that's where things are going to start getting to, because you have the younger people that are taking hold of power. I don't know what's happening in Nigeria now, but I know in Ghana that has happened. And it's going to happen systematically throughout certain countries. But again, like in Cote d'Ivoire, you have situations, they have cashews and everything going out, but they're so set in what they do that it's hard to get in there and fix their system to make it work better for the country, because I guess they're okay with it, but it seems like a broken system to me.
Well, yeah, a lot of times you deal with the representatives or the people who are trying to squeeze the most out of it, and paying people the lowest amount that they can. Again, a large part of that is, again, you don't have people on the ground. You don't have the correct relationships and different things like that to understand what is what. So again, if somebody comes and gives you a ridiculously low price for something that you can sell abroad at a high rate, at a high margin, yeah, you're going to do it. A lot of people aren't willing to kick the wheels and see and check out the engine of the car. We do need to start doing that. We're seeing all over the world with all of these different protests, revolutions, and different things that are popping up, is that technology is kind of uncovering and demystifying certain things, and people are aware at a global level that they are suffering. It's not just somebody's picking on me individually, or I just had bad luck. No, there's a system that is kind of leveraging or taking advantage of certain people. So there's an understanding of that.
And I think you're right on the money with that. Technology is going to change everything. Because in Africa, you have more mobile phones per square mile than anywhere in the world. This is how people connect. The only comparison to that would be China. But at the end of the day, this is how people connect. It's how they live their lives. They're banking mobile. They have the neo banks. They have this. They're utilizing digital assets, and they're doing this stuff. And it's funny, you wouldn't think that if you did not know what's going on in Africa, you wouldn't know this stuff. But exactly. I think that what's happening, and I think it started in Ghana. Okay, and it's going to go and trickle down to the other countries, because you're going to have the new blood coming in saying, wait a second, I'm here. I got my connections in the U.S. and Europe. Let's go make this work. Let's create technology here. Let's do something to better things here. And once that happens, it's game on, in my opinion. And then the world is going to be in shock, like, wow, because you have some highly intelligent people there that just don't have the opportunity to do the things they need to do. But they're hustlers. They hustle and they work hard, and they will hustle and think about different angles. And I say it cracks me up, but when they do that, I begin to see the mindset and what can happen, and the possibilities. And I look forward to the day when that transpires, that some of these African nations rise up and they start becoming powerhouses, global powerhouses, and the resources are there. They just need to go and get it done. That's all.
Yeah, we need to hit the restart button. I think right now what's going on, not only in Africa, but in several hot pockets, is almost like what you saw maybe about a decade ago with the Arab Spring and different things like that happening. So as it stands right now, there's about 6 different countries with like national level protests. Right here in Lagos on October 21st, there was what you call the Lekki Toll Gate Massacre, where you had thousands of Nigerian youth that were basically protesting a basically police brutality. There's a faction of the national police basically that were taking advantage of so many people doing so many cruel acts, and then they were supported by a bad governor. So Lagos is basically the prima donna of the entire country. It's the most populous city. Again, the most money comes in here. It's a port city. So at the Lekki toll gate, Lekki is basically, if you're looking at Lagos like New York, that's Manhattan. So basically, the wealthiest, most well-to-do, middle-class, celebrity, different things like that were protesting at the Lekki toll gate, and basically the army rolled up trucks and just opened fire and shot dozens of people. That was 4 streets from where I live. I could actually hear the shooting when it happened. So there's an uprising taking place. The youth, again, it's driven by technology, which is why you will see that even with the protest and the massacre that happened here, the government and different people were able to take advantage of the people who were offline and give them small amounts of money to go and disrupt protests and different things like that, because there was no unity, there was no connection between the two, so they're easily led. But the people you can't shake are the people who are watching what's going on around the world. And you mentioned through their mobile phones. Again, if you look at how much people make versus how much they make in the US, you have to look at this factor. If you make somewhere around $30,000 per year, you're in the top 1% of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So again, people here are far from that 1%. So if you look at the cost of a computer, if you look at the cost of data, if you look at the cost of power and the shaky power grid and different things like that, it doesn't tell a great story. But those 3 things in particular are what people are using to create multi-million-dollar companies every single day. This is what people are using. You were talking about online banks. So we have the likes of a Kuda Bank or a Ruby's that are online banks that are popping up in the last 2 or 3 months. Again, I told you one of our old portfolio companies was just acquired for $200 million. Even before that, we had a lot of amazing companies doing great stuff. And a lot of this, again, they have to be somehow connected to tech for us to invest in them. But it's because those are actually the companies that are doing well.
And that's a big thing with the neobanks, because you have Square and Jack Dorsey. He's trying to, and his thing, and now he became the long beard, the nose ring, and he wanted to go to and live in Africa to go and do all this stuff and make all this stuff happen. Okay, and the reality is that if you have the ability to connect people and you know how they operate and what the power that's there, they just don't have the resources to make it happen. So having a Square over there and having them connect on a major level is big. Facebook was trying to do the same thing. Zuckerberg was trying to do the same thing and just have connectivity throughout there so they can just control everyone that's being connected and advertise to them and do all this stuff. They know that it's there. But the question is that who's going to step up to make it happen? Does it have to be companies that are outside of Africa, or is someone in Africa going to step up? Or are you going to have a number of companies stepping up to do stuff there and build up the country? Because that's impact investing, especially in technology, but I know the interest from the US and Europe is there for things in Africa, but it all, I think in the world of technology, because now you're going into the 4th industrial revolution over there. So how is Africa gonna put a chokehold on it to make it work and then generate what needs to be generated country by country? And I think that's probably one of the biggest questions, because that next industrial revolution, that 4th industrial revolution, involves heavy technology.
It definitely does. And if Africa doesn't step their game up, they will not be participating in the 4th industrial revolution.
Sure.
Your educational systems and different things that you have set up here, they definitely need work. Again, if you look at what was going on as early as 2012, 2015, probably even before that, the UK started training in school as young as 5 years old how to code. The Middle East, they were having programs where they were saying, basically, for the more affluent ones, of course, but yeah, that basically like knowing how to code is going to be a language or something that you learn, just like math, science, and different things like that. It's going to be an inherent skill that you have to know to even understand this new world that's about to unfold before our very eyes.
Yeah.
So again, you have these tech companies that are playing support roles, but they're also trying to dominate the industry. If you look at Google, for instance, if you look at, they've basically bought up the existing capacity to build any more underwater lines to transport internet. Anybody who can do it, they've already paid them and bought them out at a price that nobody else can afford. They're going to basically own that landscape. They're going to own that internet infrastructure. Again,
whoever
Facebook
controls the internet and the satellites there, they basically control the country. You shut off the internet, you shut off the country. That's the reality.
Exactly.
That's control.
Facebook is also giving us a really amazing example. Facebook is telling us how to build a country out of thin air. So if you look at Facebook, basically what they set up was an infrastructure to communicate. Then they put an infrastructure for marketing and ads and different things to actually have commerce and business. And then the last thing, we were actually the ones, we called it the Black Ops Tour. I probably shouldn't talk about it, but I'll talk about it now. Okay. But their market research team that was basically trying to have all of these different meetings with key stakeholders to understand how to launch the Libra before it got blocked back in the US. We were the ones that took them through there. We couldn't even allow Facebook to talk to their counterparts that were there before the meeting. So they couldn't talk to the local Facebook members. And basically we had to set up like 25 meetings in 4 days. But basically these companies are basically trying to set their hooks into the country, and for very good reason. This is the youngest population in the world. A lot of countries, most countries are getting older. So this youth population that's growing up now, they're going to basically impact them at the ground level. Like the first internet, whatever they're going to know about is going to be Google this. The first word processing, whatever, is going to be Microsoft that. Right. Like these are going to be like household names, like we use Band-Aid and different things like that. Right. That's what they're setting themselves up to be in the tech space and in the African continent.
But that can change. But that can change.
Exactly.
That's has to change.
It's a tough battle just because how much money is behind it. But again, what we're looking at doing is basically driving money, capital, resources, whether it be from the venture capital side or from the support side, the capacity building side, to allow these local companies, these local intelligence to basically come and create things. One thing you need to know about the African continent is they skip over technology. So I know if you want to look at how we were using messaging apps before we got to Facebook, there was AIM, there was like Black Planet, there was MySpace, there were all these different things where we went from step to step to step. The African continent is kind of seeing what we're doing and skipping on what's the newest thing. If you're looking at Cash App, we've been using Cash App or whatever for about 10 years before it ever hit the US with M-Pesa that was basically using your telephone bank wallets and different things to transfer money. They were actually rivaling the banks to the point where the banks had to start creating interesting new deals and policies to incorporate them in that space. Or you have the response of Nigeria, which they're fighting tooth and nail to block them out of the banking space. Right. So like there's a lot of interesting things happening. And I think people should pay attention to Africa, not think that like, okay, if we are this far ahead of you and then you took this step, then that means, and we took this step, that means you're going to take that step. No, they may skip to a point that you didn't even consider because they have completely different needs. Right.
And then that's the thing, understanding what is happening over there, understanding the needs of the people and the communities. You know, that connectivity is important. The ability to do banking mobilely is important because over there, what do you have? You have Standard Chartered, you have a few banks over there that you can utilize, you know, but at the end of the day, when you go in there to open up a bank account, I mean, forget about it. It's like, you know, let's go see 10 generations down the road and see what happened, you know, so having the ability to easily manage your money because, you know, not everyone has, they may just have $10. And if they have $10, you know, and if they have a digital a neobank, that $10, they can have it there and they can utilize it, as opposed to having to go to a bank and pay them a fee because no one wants to get gouged on fees and everything. And that's what the banks do too. But also it's hard to open up an account over there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, things are getting easier now with the institution of like the BVN, which is the local identification and different things like that. And what you have to realize is that in many ways, the global expectation for infrastructure and the banking need, the banking infrastructure that exists in this country and many other countries outpaced the infrastructure that existed. So it's kind of like, am I going to go and build a bank in the middle of the country somewhere to collect your $10? No, I'm not.
Right. Right.
But then you have the, let's say if you have I would look up a company called Paga, which is very interesting, which basically said that, all right, we're going to take this thing digital and we're going to have people act as banks and go out into these remote areas and collect this money and have the infrastructure, have the banking set up or the internet and whatnot to say like, all right, now you have this digitally, you have this amount of money. Now you can transact. You guys can start transferring money back and forth to each other. I'll collect the money at these key locations and then set up the infrastructure through people. Again, we have to also realize one of the major differences between Africa and the let's say more established countries is that America is setting us up to live as an individual. Africa is very much so still based on community living, and we're set up to do things through people. And again, that's one of those understanding how like you can't really come here and sell a bunch of washing machines. Not to say that you can't sell any, but technically I'm just going to get my aunt to send me her niece, and she's going to send that niece to my house, and she's going to help clean up around the house and all these other different things. And because I took her from the village, and I'm just going to make sure I put her through school and get her educated. Right. Like there's those different things where there's just a different expectation. Sure. Me as an employer, I'm more like a senior family member to that person than I am just a boss.
That's the thing, is the culture, exactly. And I'll just talk about Ghana. You go to Accra, you go there, it's more robust. You have the big hotels by the seashore, everything else. You drive up an hour, you go past up the red dirt roads and everything. You go to the bush. What you have there are villages. Your villages where you have the leaders, it's all about family. Not that they all get along, but they all deal with each other, and that's how they deal with it. So you have villages and villages and villages, and the leaders, and they come together, the kings, whatever they are, they come together and they have a big powwow, and then they go and figure out what they're going to do. And the thing is that you have some good people over there. That's the one thing that I realize. You have, in life, you have good people and bad people. If you have good people that may be a little naive with certain things, and if you're honest with them and you say, look, this is what we can do. Well, we're not trying to take advantage. We're going to partner with this because I've done it. We're going to partner with this. This is what we're going to do, and we're both going to do well, and it's going to help your community. You do things like that. Any company that's listening, if you go do things like that in these countries, I don't care where it is, in these countries, you're going to have partners for life because they will go and bring you in as their family. They'll make you, maybe one of their village leaders. Who knows? But the point is, you're impacting lives. But you have to do it the right way. It's not just strictly business. It's a different type of business.
Yes. I think that this is in many ways why the world was laughing at our previous president, because especially here, morals still matter.
Of course.
Who you are and what your reputation is still matter. There again, with this communal living, the way people dealt with people and what you say about people and what people say about you was social media. That was social media back in the day. I'm not going to go and ask. I'm not going to go on social media and say, hey, I need a tailor to do this, or I need a carpenter or something. I'm going to call up one of my friends and I'm going to say, hey, I need a carpenter. And then somebody's going to say, oh yeah, it's this person. And if they call that person and they check on them and that person gets a bad review, then that bad review gets circulated around. So however powerful word of mouth is in the US, just imagine in the African continent, word of mouth can have you ostracized. It doesn't matter how much. I want to say to a certain extent, there's always somebody who folds and who buckles, but to a certain extent, you will find your circle of business, your circle of people you can interact with will disappear and shrink overnight if you get a bad reputation.
And that's why, look, when I was over there and I was doing business, they knew who I was before I even showed up. They knew who I was. They knew everything about me before I even walked in the door. And they're like, we know you, you're a good person, and we want to do business with you. And okay, and it just happens. It's just something that happens, because they're not blind. They're not stupid. They want to do business with good people, and they want to do good business. But where you have the problem is that when you have these people, and just from my experience, that are not looking to do good business, and they're Africans that are not looking to do good business. They just want to go and create an angle for them to go take a couple of bucks, as opposed to them trying to build something. Those people are the bad people. They're not doing anything to benefit the community. When you have the good people that want to benefit, and they're not. The thing is, they're not greedy. They're not greedy. They want their fair share. You give them their fair share, it works out. it
Well,
works out.
let's just look about this. Like, if you have people who are living closer to poverty than you are, and you're coming there and you're driving your big, nice, fancy car, you know, and then that's what they say. Even when you're having conversations, be careful of the numbers and figures and different things that you mentioned. But in many ways, you can walk around looking or sounding like a lottery ticket, and you'll be looking and sounding like you're taking advantage of people because they're not dumb. They know how much money you're making. And if you have, you know, they know how much things cost now.
Yeah.
Again, the internet, technology, there's a better understanding of different things, and people are not so willing just to fall for anything, or they're not so willing just to pay everybody crumbs and peanuts just so you can have huge profit margins.
Right. And this is why, but this is why what you're doing over there with Ingressive is impactful, because you're helping these companies that don't have the resources otherwise to go and get the resources for them to go and grow to be powerhouses there. You've done it already.
Exactly.
And that you're the company that you invested in got bought out by Stripe. So now you have other opportunities there, and you have some smart kids that go and they'll go get educated in the UK. They'll go to Cambridge. They'll go to the US. They come home because that's their purpose. Parents say, we're going to go and gather this money. We're going to send you to Cambridge. We're going to send you to the U.S. You're going to get educated. You're going to come back. You're going to help build this country. And that's what's happening.
There's another thing that you just reminded me of. It's one of the impacts of COVID. Now people are starting to realize, and even Harvard and all these Ivy League institutions kind of taught us when they were like, you can pay us $100,000 or however it costs, however much it is per 5 seconds at Harvard or whatever. But they shifted the model to being able to do it online, which basically solidified the fact that, oh, you can give me the highest level of education in the entire world online. Okay, cool. That validated everybody else.
Yep. But the thing is with them, what they're doing, these higher education, these high-end universities, what they're doing, they're saying, hey, wait. You can only go and do it online if you're in the U.S. If you're overseas, no, we're not offering you that. And to me, that's bogus, because if someone has the credentials and they have the academic level that a university would say, okay, you're acceptable, and they have the money to pay for it, why not?
Because I don't get it, because you're paying for the name of the degree. And that's what COVID showed me at that point. You're just paying for the name on the degree. And that if that degree opens up doors, fine, it's worth the value. But the thought that there's some type of chokehold on the information, that does not exist anymore. We should all know. I know the communities that we're dealing with, they know that basically all the information you're going to teach them is available online. And now what I'm trying to teach people is that stop looking for outside people to validate your experience. Instead of going in there trying to tell them where you worked and what projects you did make you a fit or a match to do business with this person, come in there with an actual opinion. Come in there with a strategy for how you can provide value and make money. Those are the type of youth that we're generating out of these communities with these partnerships we have. So we have we had a partnership with Coursera with the foundation where we got 5,000 licenses for up to 4,000 courses under Coursera.
Nice.
We basically put them into learning tracks to say, like, learn this in this order, like job readiness, coding, different things like that. But on the back end, we also had local Nigerians who had achieved different levels of success. Say, like, all right, this is what they're teaching you to do in America. Let me show you how it applies in the African context. So like, those are the different things. Now we're getting those people to say, like, all right, now you step out there into this business world, get some experience, and now launch your own tech startup. We have $50 million waiting on you on the other side. Like, that's the type of pipeline we're creating. And that's when now we start talking. Now my mom is like, hey, I want to invest into this thing. I was like, Mom, it's a foundation. You're just, you give them money. She's like, I know, but I can't wait. All these different things like that. People are now starting to see the opportunities. We have this amazing internship program where basically I have for about $500 a month, I have like 4 or 5 different employees that are running different elements of my business. And then we're like letting people know that you can just basically connect to somebody here, especially for those solopreneurs, especially if you're an older solopreneur that doesn't necessarily understand all these tech advents that are going on now. Hey, we got one of these youth that are basically building their own websites and building their own apps. They can also hold your hand with social media. That would just be You see what I'm saying? So like this is the type of environment where right now, even with my private company, the whole goal is to build a bridge between Africa and its diaspora, which is everybody.
Right.
And again, it just starts with just understanding how things work and having a touch point. Don't let me talk too much.
No, that's good. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. Now you know why, because your input over there is important. And what is going on over there is important. And I talk from experience. And that's the beauty of this conversation. We're both talking from experience, and we know what's there. It all depends on the people there. Because honestly, I would rather, certain companies just, be created there, build up, and help to create a stronger. I don't care if it's Nigeria, I don't care if it's Sierra Leone, I don't care where it is, but create stronger nations. And if you create stronger nations that have that view, that they adhere to family values and things of that nature, and they bring people together, those are the ones that are going to rise up and help to connect globally. Okay.
Definitely.
And it's crazy to me that over the past 20 years, how things have been so different in certain countries. And the big thing with, when people say, oh, well, you have a lot of poverty and you have a lot of this, you have a lot of scams that happen here. Yeah. All this comes about because there's no balance. If you're not giving people the opportunity to rise up, what are they going to do? They have to figure it out. And that's the one thing I always say about any African. They know how to figure it out. You throw them somewhere in the middle of the street, dead broke, they will survive. They will survive, and they will figure it out.
Well, I think I don't want to get too conspiracy theorists here, but what you have to realize is that just like looking at economies of scale, right? For a long time, I feel like a lot of these entire nations and multinationals that approach the African continent, they already approached it from a predatory nature, leaving everybody else to kind of pick up the crumbs that were left behind. So if you're looking at this from a political aspect, if the local person, like your average person, let's say, makes 50,000 naira a month, which is a little bit over $100 a month, you have people who you could basically buy an election for $500,000. Now look at that from the perspective of these multinational companies, basically who have endless millions of dollars. You can influence policies, you can influence who is in office, and you can create an environment where certain people can't fight back.
Well, with that being said, you use the word could. I think they probably are, until people smarten up, and that's why you see this youth popping up like, hey, wait a second.
Exactly.
Wait a second. You're not doing this to us anymore, because they saw it. They probably saw what their parents went through, what their grandparents went through, the oppression, suppression, all this stuff. They're like, wait, we can change.
Exactly. And let me give you the perfect example of what I saw. If you can look at the example of China. China 30, 40, maybe almost 50 years ago now was a country that was in poverty. And now they're an imperialist nation where we're like, they're everywhere taking everything. Like things can change within our lifetime. Sure. And it's like, if you play your cards right, depending on what side of the coin you are, you can do very well in this country. Because again, everything is still attainable.
Yeah, and you mentioned predatory, and that's what I see when it comes to, and I'm going to talk about it again, China coming into Africa. That's predatory. They're going, they're bringing stuff, and they're paying people off. They're bringing their machines in and everything, where you cannot use those machines over there for agriculture or for mining without the authority of the government. They're bringing it underground, throwing it in the bush, and people are using it because it's cheaper, but it's garbage, but they're doing it because it's affordable.
Exactly.
But you get in trouble, you're going to jail. So, but that's about it.
Well, I was a part of.
You don't want to go to African jail, boy. That's no fun.
You do not. Let's say that. Let's say that you do not. I haven't gone, and I would never break the law.
Do not. In any way, shape, or form.
No. But let me say this. So when I was located in Accra, I was working with, I wish I knew the name. The African Diaspora,
Okay.
Ahaspora. An amazing group for anybody who wants to move to Ghana or a lot of the West African countries. They have this amazing network there. But they took on their shoulders to stop or to address the illegal strip mining industry, primarily being pushed by the Chinese. It was a movement called Stop Galamsey, which again, Galamsey is I think it's tree for, illegal mining. So we brought in some of the miners, we brought in the locals who are participating in it, and we brought in just a few other key stakeholders. And basically at the end of the day, the conversation was like, the miners would love, as far as the Ghanaians would love to stop doing it, but they were in utter poverty. They brought in this solution. Now the whole area is eating they destroyed the entire area, they destroyed the water, but they can actually eat and live a better life and move somewhere else. And they're like, if you're going to take away illegal strip mining, then what are you going to replace it with? How am I supposed to eat? And that's the problem.
That's the problem over there. And I know one thing that they initiated recently, because we have boots on the ground over there, that the government over there is allowing local villages to mine legally. Give them a license legally for them to do that. Now that's great. Problem is they don't have the machines and everything to dig everything. So it's like he goes a carrot, but you have no teeth. So what do you do? So there's still a problem where there has to be some sort of private-public partnerships or something that needs to happen to spark things over there. And again, whether it be in Ghana, whether it be in Nigeria, whether it be in other countries, there has to be a combination of both, because I think that's the only way you're going to be able to rise up and be part of the world stage.
Exactly. But in the short term, for those of us who are brave, smart, and aware, you can come in and get your own piece of this and piece of, not illegal strip mining, but just where there's holes in infrastructure and where things don't exist. People are building it themselves, step by step by step. Some of these things, again, are capital intensive, which is why, again, we're focusing on tech. So for people trying to launch apps and do different things like that, if people were able to start saying like, hey, why do I use my international perspective, my eye for quality, and all these different things that should be put inside of any type of technical application, but let me try to also match in and build in and incorporate the cultural aspects of where I want to launch these things. And I think that's where a lot of us can start finding opportunities all over the world, or even if you're talking about Africa or anywhere. Because what you have to realize as well is that as far as where developing economies are concerned, if it'll work here, it'll work in South America, it'll work in Mississippi, it'll work in the back corner areas of Australia, all these different areas where you have whether it be a region or a specific space or an actual country.
Yeah, and the thing is over there, it just comes down to understanding the opportunity, understanding the game and how it works. You do that, you can make things happen. What you're doing with Ingressive over there is really interesting, because you're giving these companies an opportunity where they wouldn't have it otherwise without you, because you're bringing the financial resources for them to actually go and execute. You have some smart people there that just need that opportunity. So let's go through some of the things that Ingressive is doing. I know we were talking about everything Africa, but I want to talk about what you're doing too, because it is important to what's happening in Nigeria right now.
Awesome. We did we learned from a lot of mentors and different people that we've seen in the space, and we learned that that you can create a nonprofit and you can also create a for-profit, and they act in. One can't serve the other, but they can be harmonious in the ecosystem that they both enjoy, so to speak. So if we're just going to take it back a little bit, basically in 2015, my co-founder basically started Ingressive, the advisory company. The advisory company basically was the infrastructure for the VC. She was a young woman at 23, 24 years old, had never ran a VC or had any experience there, and was asking a bunch of people to give her money, millions of dollars. And they were like, who are you, first of all? Why would I, second of all? So the thing that she had to do, again, to build that infrastructure, to build trust and to get people to kind of started jumping into the continent was she set up Tour of Tech. So in 2015, 2016, she brought in the Glickman Trust Foundation, Geeks on a Plane. There are so many others, 500 Startups, Y Combinator. And these people ended up not only coming in and visiting and loving and experiencing the culture, but they also changed their investment strategy. Michael Siebel, the CEO of Y Combinator, which is a huge VC, basically is one of the LPs on the fund that we have here. And they're using it like a testing ground for the African continent. So we make the early stage investments. And if it gets traction and everything looks like it's going well, then they come in and basically acquire the company. And that's our exit strategy. So there's just amazing synergy that goes on here. But again, it was just us building that infrastructure through coming around and creating an advisory company. What we found, though, over time is that there weren't as many polished companies as we thought from the American expectation, from the Y Combinator or the multi-million-dollar investment conversation. So we realized that we had to create our own deal flow. So with that, that's where we started partnering with different tech companies, realizing that would be the lowest barrier to entry, leveraging technology. And we started creating relationships with we were one of the ones that launched GitHub. I don't know if you know about the online repository GitHub, but we launched them within the African continent. We launched Figma, which was the web-based online design tool. So we launched them within the African continent, and we work with Facebook, Google, Microsoft for Africa, like all these different huge tech companies. Basically, and what we were able to do was basically aggregate all of these different tech communities into one and kind of be able to influence them and get them to participate in different community activities, but also engaging with these products that the people were trying to push out, understanding that if they get them to use it at an early stage, later on, these will be your full-time users, or this will be matched into that. And we had to set up the agreement where it's like, okay, you can engage them, but what are you going to do for these youth? How are you going to help them get to their next level? And it was in that journey and in that understanding where we launched Ingressive for Good in January 3rd, 2020. So this year. So we launched in the middle of the pandemic.
Right. Well, hey, just sometimes, opportunity, and things happen,
Well, the thing exploded. It exploded. So we went from, the let's say skeleton of the communities that we had before. So now we're up to about, if you count our community of 17,000 and our partner communities, we have like 30,000 enthusiastic techies just in Nigeria. What our goal is to train 1 million youth, deploy $1 million in scholarship funding, and connect them to 5,000 jobs over the next 5 years. Nice. And again, we're already just with the 6-month pilot to kind of better understand what policies and procedures and strategies we wanted to put in place. We were already blowing half of our 1-year goals out of the water. So there's a thirst for what we are doing. There's a use case for what we are doing, because people are coming up to us saying we can't afford, they can't find technical talent. The same thing that I'm finding in some of these back corners in the US, once you get outside of the 5 cities that everybody knows, once you get out of LA, New York City, Miami, or whatever, if you look at, not to negative, positive, there are different people, different perspectives. But if you look at Trump country, that heart and soul, that middle ground of America, it's quite different than you see from the extremes. So again, these are more the type of people where they're saying that there's not 1,000 techies in Ohio that are waiting to build your website or do this, that, and the third. These are still growing markets in different spaces. So we're all learning together that there's a better use case for this technical talent, and that you would find more profitable companies, more sure bankers, so to speak, as we say in Ghana, if they were able just to connect to that talent in a better understood way. And for the youth, they just need to understand what a path to success looks like.
Well, and that's important. That's why what you're doing is important. And with the pandemic, it showed a different picture, that you don't have to be in Silicon Valley, in Silicon Beach. You don't need to be at Harvard. You don't have to be at MIT. You don't have to be at these places, or New York City, to go and make things happen. Okay, because all these companies, when they started out, they were not in the big hubs. Those big hubs were created around them. Okay, exactly. And that's what people need to learn their history. Same thing in Detroit. That's the Motor City, right? Okay, it wasn't the Motor City until Henry Ford started building cars there, and then the Dodge brothers, and then everything else, and Chrysler, and all this stuff started coming in, and it all comes. It's a spark. It's a spark that'll go and get the flames moving, and then that wind will come, and all of a sudden, boom, you have an inferno. And it can happen over there. It can happen over there, and the things you're doing are fantastic, Sean. And I appreciate what you're doing over there. That's good. That's good stuff, man. And that's why I wanted to have you on here so we can talk about all this stuff. Now, and in closing, is there anything else you want to add to maybe the African companies, maybe the African youth that are watching this, and you want to go send a message? What is that message going to come from you to them?
If I had to say anything to the African youth, number one, I would say just don't give up. Be aggressively patient. Keep pushing to break down those walls. Keep pushing to break down those barriers that are holding you back, and just educate yourself, learn, and don't be afraid to try these new things. Don't be afraid to build solutions in your local areas, in your environment around you. And if you do it well enough, look out for us. Reach out for us, because we're definitely looking for you.
And how are they going to reach out to you, Sean? Give them that information.
Awesome. You can find us at www.ingressive.co. So that's Ingressive, INGRESSIVE.co. Or if you are a startup looking for investment, that would be Ingressive, spelled the same way, capital.com. www.ingressivecapital.com.
Okay, go check out Ingressive.co and IngressiveCapital.com. And look, for the African youth out there that are looking to change their lives and changing the community, get in touch with them. Sean and his team, they're doing some great things. And again, I appreciate you coming on and going through this. And I want you to stay with me for a second. I have to close out the show. For the viewers and listeners that have been with us during the show, I appreciate you tuning in. And again, check out Ingressive.co, find out what's going on there, and make sure you join us for the next episode of Money Never Sleeps. We have more interesting topics that are going to be coming along. And thank you for tuning in.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
You're listening to UCW Radio. In your face.
What is your major malfunction?
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Ladies and gentlemen, my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you.
All opinions expressed by Luis Velazquez on the Money Never Sleeps radio show and its website are solely his opinions and do not reflect the opinions of the UCW radio show or their parent company or affiliates, and may have been previously disseminated by him on television, radio, internet, or another medium. You should not treat any opinion expressed by him as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of his opinion. His opinions are based upon information he considers to be reliable, but neither the UCW radio show nor its affiliates, parent companies, and or subsidiaries warrant its completeness or accuracy, and it should not be relied upon as such. The UCW radio show, Luis Velazquez, its affiliates, parent companies, and or subsidiaries are not under any obligation to update or correct any information provided on the radio show or on the website. His statements and opinions are subject to change without notice. No part of his compensation from the UCW radio show is related to the specific opinions he expresses. Please read the full disclaimer on MoneyNeverSleepsRadio.com.